For around 8 decades, liberals from the rest of the Muslim world have looked towards Turkey as a ray of hope, a light at the end of the tunnel, a beacon for a brighter future for those living under the heel of Islamism. Wherever Islam has gone, it has taken away all hopes for an enlightened, egalitarian, civilized, and humane society. Whether it be Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Indonesia, or any other country where Islam has been given a role in the government, it has taken over and transformed these nations for the worse. It turned Afghanistan from this to this, Iran from this to this, Pakistan from this to this, and Indonesia from this to this, and has been trying to do the same with Turkey for the last 2 decades. My fellow secular Turks, the fate of not only your future, but that of the rest of the Muslim world is in your hands. You have a choice to either allow Turkey to slide into the abyss of Islamism or turn things around and transform Turkey into a modern, progressive, secular society as Ataturk envisioned. I respect the Turkish people, so I will not tell you who you should vote in the upcoming elections, but I will tell you what is at stake here. I don't claim to be an expert in Turkish politics, and I don't know the economic or foreign policies of Erdogan's opposition, but I do know what is at stake here. Videos like these do get demonetized and as a result lose their reach, so please like and share the video to boost its reach. So let's take a look at these elections and what they mean, starting with a bit of history. The foundations of modern Turkey were laid in the aftermath of World War I under some of the most challenging circumstances imaginable. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire, which had ruled Turkey for centuries, was in shambles. The empire had sided with Germany in the war and was on the losing side. The victorious Allied powers, particularly France and Britain, carved up the empire, dividing it into various territories and spheres of influence. The Ottoman Empire was to be dismantled and the Turkish people were left to their own devices. It was in this context that a charismatic military leader named Mustafa Kemal Ataturk emerged as a key player in the future of Turkey. Ataturk was a veteran of the war, having fought in Gallipoli and other battles, and had emerged as a hero among the Turkish people. He was determined to create a new, modern, secular Turkish state, free from the influence of the Ottoman Empire and its Islamic traditions. Ataturk's reforms were not without controversy. Many traditionalists opposed his vision for Turkey, seeing it as a betrayal of the Islamic heritage. But Ataturk was determined to see his vision through, and he was able to rally support from many Turks who shared his vision for a modern, secular, democratic Turkey. In 1923, Ataturk declared the establishment of the Republic of Turkey, with himself as the first president. This marked the beginning of a new era in Turkish history, one that would see the country become a modern, progressive secular republic. Ataturk's legacy would live on long after his death, as his vision for Turkey became enshrined in the country's constitution and in the hearts and minds not only of Turkish people, but of every liberal Ataturkian in the Muslim world. This was a thorn in the eyes of every Islamist across the Muslim world who wanted to take every Muslim country back to the 7th century Arabia. Today, Turkey is a complex, dynamic country that is still grappling with many of the challenges that Ataturk faced almost a century ago. Many Islamists like Erdogan want to take you back to a traditionalist Islamic world, which essentially means paying jizya if you're a non-Muslim minority, reintroducing corporal punishments, banning alcohol, and reducing women to baby-making machines. You might think that this is not what Erdogan says, but every Islamist leads his country to just that. Should I replay the part where it shows what happened to Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Indonesia? This is exactly what you are voting for. Once you fall under the spell of an Islamist, it takes you centuries to recover. Today's Turkey under President Recep Tayyip Erdogan would send shivers down Ataturk's spine. Erdogan has been in power for almost 2 decades, and during his tenure, he has been steadily moving Turkey towards Islamization and an increasingly confrontational stance with the West. Erdogan's rise to power can be traced back to his political party, the AKP, which he co-founded in 2001. At the time, he presented himself as a moderate Islamist and promised to bring stability and prosperity to Turkey. His message resonated with a majority of the Turkish population, and the AKP won a sweeping victory in the 2002 elections, with Erdogan becoming the prime minister. However, Erdogan's true intentions soon became apparent as he began to consolidate power and erode Turkey's secular traditions. He has purged the military, judiciary, and civil society of his opponents, jailed journalists and activists, and used Islam to justify his authoritarian rule. He's been at war with Ataturk. One example of Erdogan's effort to turn secular Turkey into a medieval Islamic state is the conversion of Hagia Sophia. According to Dr. Can Iramtan, the status of Hagia Sophia as a museum acts as nothing but an architectural and institutional symbol of Turkey's founding father. Ataturk is hated not only just by Islamist Turks, but also by Islamists all around the Muslim world, including Pakistan. I have often seen secular Turks wondering why Pakistanis are so obsessed with Turkey. They're not obsessed with Ataturk's Turkey. They're obsessed with an authoritarian like Erdogan because they see Erdogan as a hero of Islam, as a long-lost caliph who would lead the Muslim world back to the glory days of the Prophet. Hagia Sophia, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, was originally built as a Christian cathedral in the 6th century, then converted into a mosque after the Ottoman Empire conquered Constantinople in 1453. It was turned into a museum in 1935 as part of Turkey's secularization efforts, as a goodwill gesture to the world that we are ready to move on. However, in July 2020, Erdogan declared that it would once again become a mosque, sparking outrage among secular Turks and damaging Turkey's secular image in the civilized world. But Hagia Sophia is not the only secular building that Erdogan has converted into a mosque. He has also turned Chora Church into the Karaya Mosque. If he stays in power, more churches are going to turn into mosques as a show of force to his fellow Islamists in Turkey. Turkey is on the cusp of going from a modern secular democracy to a backward medieval theocracy. Under Erdogan's rule, there has been a significant purge of civil rights in Turkey. The government has been cracking down on freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of assembly. Erdogan has imprisoned journalists, academics, and political opponents, often on trumped-up charges of terrorism or insulting the president. There have been numerous reports of opposition politicians being arrested, detained, or harassed for their political views. One of the most high-profile examples of this was the imprisonment of the popular Kurdish politician Selahattin Demirtas, who was jailed on terrorism charges in 2016 and has remained in prison ever since. The government has also shut down opposition media outlets and arrested journalists, with hundreds of journalists and media workers currently in prison. This is worse than Pakistan. The judiciary has been co-opted, with judges and prosecutors who are critical of the government being removed from their positions and replaced with Erdogan's loyalists. The government has also used emergency powers to rule by decree, bypassing parliament and the courts, and has detained tens of thousands of people without charge or trial. The purge has extended beyond Turkey's borders, with Turkish intelligence agencies abducting and kidnapping opposition figures and dissidents abroad. Erdogan is an authoritarian whose heroes are Prophet Muhammad and thugs like Caliph Umar. He has been pushing an Islamist agenda in Turkey, promoting religious education and building more mosques. Erdogan's Islamization efforts have also been felt in Turkish society, with restrictions placed on alcohol sales and consumption. Women of Turkey, if this guy stays in power, say goodbye to your freedoms and join the ranks of the women of Afghanistan and Iran. Do men and women of Turkey want to live in a medieval state where everything is policed, from your clothes to what headgear you wear to what time you wake up in the morning? Yes, this is exactly what always ends up happening when Islamists end up taking power. Erdogan's government has also been accused of human rights abuses, particularly against minorities such as the Kurds and LGBTQ community. In recent years, there have been reports of extrajudicial killings, torture, and other forms of abuse against these groups. Over the years, Erdogan has been at the center of numerous corruption scandals. In 2013, a large-scale corruption probe targeted top officials in Erdogan's government, including his son, and led to a major political crisis. The scandal involved allegations of bribery, money laundering, and illicit dealings with Iran. Despite the scandal, Erdogan managed to maintain power and even took steps to crack down on those investigating the corruption allegations. Since then, he has faced other allegations of corruption, including claims of receiving millions of dollars in bribes in exchange for construction contracts and rigging elections. However, these allegations have not led to any significant consequences for Erdogan, as he has been able to maintain his grip on power through authoritarian means. In 2017, he pushed through a constitutional referendum and significantly expanded the powers of the presidency, allowing him to remain in power until at least 2023. Since then, he has used these powers to silence his critics and restrict political opposition. This is why these elections are so important for Turkey's future. In the recent devastating earthquake in Turkey that killed over 44,000 people and left tens of thousands more maimed, Erdogan's building boom of the early 2000s came under heavy scrutiny. Erdogan has been accused of granting amnesty to construction companies, with many people accusing him of corruption and benefiting from unethical construction practices. However, none of these claims have been substantiated, but it is important to mention them in light of the disaster. In recent years, Erdogan has been increasingly confrontational with the West and has clashed with the United States and the European Union on issues such as human rights, press freedom, and Turkey's role in NATO. As Turkey's relationship with the West has become increasingly strained, Erdogan has turned to more conservative Islamic countries like Qatar and Iran for support. Is getting in bed with dictators and some of the worst human rights abusers an attitude of a democratic leader? This has caused concern among Turkey's NATO allies, who worry that the country is drifting away from the Western secular values and more towards authoritarianism. I could continue to provide more examples, but the point is clear. Erdogan poses a danger to modern Turkey. The freedoms you enjoy today will erode again in a heartbeat. He has laid the groundwork for transforming Turkey into another Afghanistan or Pakistan. People like me think twice before traveling to Turkey. My friend, apostate prophet, an ex-Muslim of Turkish origin, cannot go to Turkey and would be arrested at the airport the moment he lands, all because of his secular views. Today, civilized countries think twice before letting anyone from countries like Pakistan or Afghanistan enter. I cannot tell you who to vote for, but if you cherish your individual freedoms and do not want to see Turkey follow the same path as these once promising countries, I urge you to vote carefully. If you like my video and would like to support my channel, then you can be my patron by going to patreon.com/xmuslim, or you can simply buy me a coffee.